let's have a little discussion about the Confederate flag and the changing of the names of all the Army and Navy bases, not just databases, bases, from that had Confederate names on them, and also the destruction of all the Confederate statues, like statues of Robert E. Lee and stuff like that. Let's have a little chat about that, all right? A little editorial, please. First of all, the Confederate flag. Everybody is believing right now that that's a symbol of oppression. It's a symbol of separation and of white supremacy, basically. Actually, that's a lie. The Confederate flag was not the flag of the South at all. The Confederate flag was it was a battle flag used by the Confederate Army. Is part, just that's what they used. It'd be like, we have our dragon flags or whatever, those cards, they used to have those decks of cards with Saddam Hussein was the ace of spades and stuff like that. They're just symbols they're of soldiers that they used for battle. It ain't got nothing to do with the South. I mean, it's the flag of the Confederate Army, but that's not the South. I mean, it wasn't the flag of the South like everybody believes, okay? Like we had our American flags over here, and they had their Confederate flag. That wasn't like that at all, okay? That's a lie, okay? First of all. Now, about changing these Army and Navy data, I keep saying databases. I used to be a computer guy. All over the world. How about that? Was that a good idea? Remember Pocahontas? She's the one that suggested it. She had an amendment. And actually, they passed it, I guess, tonight or yet last night by a Republican-led committee. I don't understand that. We're talking rhino there, baby, rhinos. That's fucking rhinos. Trump wouldn't have liked that. Trump made it clear. He even had his girl Kellyanne. She was saying, not Kellyanne Conway, Kelly McElhinney, whatever her name is. She was saying that when the soldiers left to go to these foreign wars, that base was the last place they saw that was the last piece of America that they saw before they were putting the ships in and took it off to war. And a lot of those guys never came back. That was the last piece of American soil that these soldiers ever saw. So that's an insult to change that, She made that point, and obviously Trump feels that way. Well, who else felt that way? Let me see here. Hang on. Let me read you an article that was in Breitbart. It just came out just now, okay? And my girl, Pat Dickerson, she found it. Because she finds all this stuff all the time. Give me a second here, okay? Okay, this is part of the debating as to whether or not they should have changed these base names, okay? Let me just read you a little bit of the debate that they went through here, okay? Okay? The idea emerged in the wake of a racial event, okay, in which a white supremacist, let's just say that some racial stuff happened, okay? In the aftermath of this, state governments removed the Confederate battle flag from the grounds of the state capitol, noting its history as a symbol of division. However, oh, hang on. Give me a second here. However, somebody wanted to reject the idea. Okay, hang on a minute. When they were debating this, somebody wanted to reject the idea. Hang on. Somebody in the administration rejected the idea of renaming military bases named for Confederate bases, knowing that many of the names had been adopted as symbols of reconciliation between the North and South after the brutal Civil War. Okay, this is a report. It says the Army's top spokesman, Brigadier General Malcolm B. Frost, issued a brief statement in the aftermath of questions about whether the military ought to consider changing the names of bases like Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That's, by the way, that's where they made the fucking anthrax that they said fucking Saddam Hussein used. They actually made it in Fort Bragg. That was a bio attack on American citizens done by American operatives, deep state operatives. And that's what sent us into the Iraq War. Did you know that? Oh, by the way, okay, a little tangent there, okay. Which is named after the man who led the Confederate Army of Tennessee, General Braxton Bragg. Quote, every Army installation is named for a soldier who holds a place in our military history, Frost said. According to these historic names, present individuals according to these historic names, accordingly, these historic names represent individuals, not causes or ideologies. It should be noted that the naming occurred in the spirit of reconciliation, not division. Well, as far as it being individuals, not ideologies, that gets back to like, scraping the names off those tombstones, Where are you going to draw the line, guys? You have to draw a line somewhere. But here's what happened with this debate here, okay? It says that they chose Fort Bragg as a site for an address welcoming U.S. troops home from their mission in Iraq in 2011. In the wake of the killing of George Floyd in police custody in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and nationwide protests and unrest, Democrats have pushed for the renaming of the bases, and some Republicans have indicated an openness to the idea. However, the present push to rename bases began before Floyd was killed. That debate above I was reading, that was actually President Obama who was against the idea. He actually voted the idea down. The U.S. Army under President Barack Obama turned down the suggestion in 2015 of renaming military bases that had been named for Confederate generals. What about that? Barack said not to do it. He said what I'm saying, that they represent individuals, not a collective. So what happened now? How did Pocahontas convince these fucking rhinos to do it? And basically bitch slap Trump right in the face. How did this happen, guys? How did this fucking happen? All right, let's talk about the statues and shit. What about the guys that actually made those statues, constructed them? The guys that, they scraped their hands, they chiseled, they got the face all perfectly right. They planned it out for years. They got all the money, to invest in it. People put money up front to build it. There was a lot of historical research done, and the guy actually had to work to actually construct these statues. And it's not a small undertaking to do that, by the way. It's not something you do in your shop class, like over a weekend. These things sometimes take years, okay? And sometimes hundreds of man-years are involved in the building of these things. Every one of them, okay? And there's historic presences. There's all over the world, there's records that say where these statues are located at, and that's all going to change or something like that. So what about that? I mean, think of 100 years later, after these guys do all this work to honor whatever they're trying to honor, okay? And 100 years later, some fucking punk from Seattle chisels the fucking head off and sprays BLM on it because he's paid to do that so political operatives can overthrow our country. These guys are spitting in their fucking grave right now, okay? Spitting in their grave. Now, you can go ahead and chisel the names off all the tombstones. You can erase all the names from all the history books. You can destroy all the statues. And what you're going to be left with is you're not going to have any history left, okay? And without history, it will then repeat itself. History will repeat itself. These guys are burning themselves right there. It would be just like as if they completely wiped out the entire memory of Hitler and the Third Reich. It was just gone from the history books because people didn't like it, okay? And it's gone from the history books. What happens? It can happen again, you fucking idiots. So not only are you're dishonoring the actual people that lived it, you're rewriting history and you're making it so it can happen again. Good job, guys. That's my editorial.